3. This is a special series designed to bless each of us with, lest we forget and need to be reminded, awareness, greater appreciation, personal accountability, a spiritual focus, unshakable motivation, and it is tested, and an enduring purpose. No matter what comes our way, we have a purpose. And that all helps us to build up one another to love and good deeds. Hebrews 10:24. Paul, inspired by the Spirit, wrote in 1 Corinthians 12:1 to not be ignorant, but rather to be informed about spiritual gifts. And that's why we chose this series. It's rarely taught and discussed. In verse 31 of that chapter, he even encourages us to mature in each of them, obviously, but all the while keeping focus on what's greater or most important, as he's emphasizing love and a life that expresses it. So, I hope this series is a blessing, and tonight is as well. Here are a couple premises that are so important. If you're viewing for the first time or needing to be reminded, upon our baptism, every one of us, every baptized believer is given the essence of his spiritual presence, the essence of God's spiritual presence. And we could turn to Acts 2, 1 Corinthians 6, Romans 8, or Ephesians 1 to talk about this. But in matters of current role salvation, the presence of God with us, God's Spirit, if you will, as the Scripture says, is His nature on or in our soul as the Father's deposit or seal, confirming that we are going to be eternally dwelling with Him. And as I remember Ron saying one time, I'll give someone a nickel if they close the double doors. That's a great opportunity for service. And I see Michael jumping up. That's a great example before we get our class. That's great. Thank you, sir, so much. So this whole series is on the premise that the Spirit of God Himself still aids the body in both the giving and the providential development of abilities necessary for a healthy church to thrive. Reworded then, spiritual gifts are specific abilities to serve the church. Slightly reworded for academic purposes, a Spirit-given ability that enables the recipient to perform a function in the body with ease and success. I think that's important, okay? Now, we talked about the sign gifts last week briefly and showed that they fulfilled their purpose. But the enduring, necessary, Spirit-aided and empowered gifts or abilities for daily function still remain, and they are under two broader categories. If we look at them this way, we mention things like teaching, shepherding, evangelism, administration. We need all of those, and those are developed in different ways, we'll say, but providentially, God provides. But how? Service gifts, exhortation, giving, faith, helping, showing mercy. These are gifts. They're also commands. Very interesting to draw the line or the distinction between the two. So let's cut right the Scripture. We're going to spotlight the spiritual gift, and as we do, we're going to learn about how Oak Hill has been blessed with individuals like this. And two, I got to give credit where it's due. I've been going through a lot of old books just to remind myself what I've got. I'm amazed. I say, how did I get this book? When did I get this book? Why do I still have this book? I was also referenced a book when I was reading some other preacher's notes, and I bought a used copy of this, just a few bucks, and it's well worth every penny. This one is called Discover Your God-Given Gifts. I didn't know it existed. And I don't agree with everything that's in this book. Even for tonight's lesson, I probably looked at about 15% of what was provided on the same subject. Good resource, though, if you want to buy this, feel free to read it and always weigh it out with Scripture. But it will be helpful to you, and that's the inspiration for at least the arrangement of the class tonight. Lesson 3, the gift of service. Service, a spiritual gift. Thank God for those with this gift. Thank God for people with this gift. Servers are those who render practical services to meet practical needs. And that keeps the work of ministry moving forward. As we esteem each gift, building appreciation, we need to also keep a few points in mind to stay in balance. Romans 12, 1 Peter 4, Ephesians 4, 15 and 16 let us know that none of us are to carry the weight of the entire congregation, nor should we. That's not how it's supposed to be. But the congregation's work is all accomplished by what each joint supplies Ephesians 4, by what each joint supplies. And I think then that just from Romans chapter 12, we can learn 2 points. First, we all have different levels of giftedness and responsibility in each of the areas listed. We do. In some respects, we each have some level of giftedness and thereby accountability. But none of us then can say in practical terms, well, let's say you're with someone in the church building and it's only you after services and someone else still sitting in the pew. You're the second to last to leave, and you notice this member starts to cry. There is no way for you to say, oh, wait. I don't have a gift of mercy. I don't excel in this. And so I'm just going to keep on going. I may call someone, and half an hour from now they might show back up to administer mercy and let them their cry on their shoulder. But I can't do that. No, you're there. That's your opportunity. As a Christian, administer that to the best of your ability. However, the second point from Romans 12, I gather as well, is we each have also a higher level of giftedness in at least one of these areas. And just as we can't do everything exceptionally well, and I think that's actually a good thing that we cannot, because it builds appreciation and interdependency, we also realize that there are some functions that we can do exceptionally well. We all have an area in which we are strongest in, and it's in that area where we have the most responsibility and the most opportunity, because we are attuned to that. That's our place in the kingdom, in our service in the local church, whatever that gift might be. So stop focusing on what you can't do. Focus on what you can do. And if you don't know what area of your giftedness is, then maybe this series will help. You might be a server. Servers get the work done. Servers meet practical needs. It's like the common phrase that says, someone's got to do it, and they are the ones that do it. All right, question. Are you a natural server? Now, when I say natural, you might be shocked as our study continues of how Satan works to suppress what is God-given. Many people don't even know their gifts because their true self has been, by circumstances or some factors underdeveloped, not complemented by the discovery or cultivation of the gifts. There's one whole chapter in here that I'll just reference the bullet points. They say, this couple says, reasons you may not even know your gift. Obviously, there's not been much teaching on it. But then also maybe you've never put Christ on in baptism, and therefore the blessings from the Spirit don't come. You are not being spiritually fed. You're not focusing on that. Maybe you've had some confusion or conflicting ideas about what those gifts are. Like we mentioned before, why study about gifts that don't happen today, right? Let's see, what's another one? It says also things may block your developments, like you may have bondages like fear, anger. You may have been trying to be someone you're not. Very insightful. A poor self-image can hinder your operation and service. Irresponsibility, just on and on and on. And ultimately sin. Sin stops all things good. So, good insight. So when I ask you, are you a natural server, forget about how society or circumstances or even your own mind has conditioned you, and ask yourself, what's my true self? Using some Stephen Covey terms, I'd like to say this. Perhaps years ago you started using your natural gift, and some occasion was just so natural for you that you began to administer that gift or to employ it, serve it. But someone either said or did something hurtful or even stupid, and in that moment your production capability, in spiritual terms, your spirit's willingness to serve and grow, was so crushed that you feel no motivation to utilize your gift. That's very insightful, and it happens all the time to every one of us, whatever it is. So I hope this series helps you become a victor over that. To this question, though, let me reword it and take out the word natural. Are you a server? And then someone, like servers, would say, well, aren't we all supposed to be? Well, absolutely. Matthew 20, 1 Peter 4, we all have that obligation. And yet, have you noticed that some are just exceptionally gifted to jump up and do what needs to be done? A natural knack for serving in those practical ways. If you score low on this lesson tonight, on these questions, that's okay. Just let it inspire you to grow. But Luke chapter 4, let's turn to verses 38 and 39, and we'll read some details as we go, while mentioning some characteristics of those so gifted. Luke chapter 4. Now he, Jesus, arose from the synagogue and entered Simon's house, but Simon's wife's mother was sick with a high fever, and they made a request of him concerning her. Will you help her, heal her? Verse 39. So he stood over her and rebuked the fever, and it left her, get this, and immediately she arose and served them. Immediately she arose and served them. I don't like to do what I call interpolate, where I think that because I want to stress this point, I'll say that that's the main point that's we're supposed to learn. But I am taking a familiar text and presuming some things that may or may not be accurate. But in terms of principle for our study, they are. Point number one, servers easily recognize practical needs and are quick to meet them. Peter's mother-in-law had been terribly sick, laid up in bed for however long this had been going on. All that time she had not been involved in those household tasks. Was probably driving her nuts because hospitality was a big issue back then for sure, and it should be today. But when you regain your strength, you tend to prioritize quickly doing what you most enjoyed and missed. For all this time, she couldn't do those daily chores, hospitable service. But as soon as she was healed, she saw those needs and began serving immediately. Interesting to think about that. Some people are just attuned to notice these needs and immediately meet them. Servers are quick to see. Servers are quick to do. Others may not be. Here's some examples. I borrowed an example from a good preacher friend that I follow, though I've never met, Edwin Crozier. He had a humorous joke. He said, along this type of line, he said, when it snows, he says, I think about, there's first thing I think about, and that is snowball fight, sledding, let's have some fun, snow cream, ice cream, yeah. And then you're made to feel very, very small. As my granddad used to say, so small that you could dangle your legs off of a dime. Really funny to think about how tiny you feel when you're around a server and they say, you know what, we have some elderly in our neighborhood. I bet that they need their sidewalks, shoveled and cleared. What? Where'd that come from? It was in their minds. Maybe during the fall season, you're driving by a house and it's the only one in the neighborhood covered with leaves. Instead of thinking, when are they going to get to it? You say, I have an air blower. I'll call them to see if they mind, because either they're not feeling well, they don't have time to get around to it, they work late hours. Who knows? Servers are geared to think that way. During a pandemic, some people did less. Servers did more. Isn't it interesting? So be honest to yourself. How do you rank on this? Servers easily recognize practical needs and are quick to meet them. Be honest. In other words, don't say what you wish. Answer how you are, naturally. And don't overthink it. Don't overthink it. As a general rule. Okay? Point two, servers prioritize the needs of others. They really, really do. They truly do. They are more in the needs of others than their own needs. Selfish people, I hate to say selfish, but it's a sin that we are plagued by to some degree. And people who live just for themselves, doing what they want to do, when they want to do it, as they want to do it, how they want to do it, they can't fathom. And those who are servers truly mourn if they have a humble heart and are serving for the right reason, not also selfishly, which is another discussion. They are the happiest for doing it this way. They won't spend $1 for themselves, but they'll spend 50 or 100 for somebody else. They mourn. Now, money management's another thing. But those are the people who mourn for others who just don't know that experience. Peter's mother-in-law had been sick, on the receiving end of all these services rendered to meet her needs. Well, after that instant miraculous healing, the first thing she does is turns the tables and starts meeting the needs of others. Now, someone would say, well, she was probably grateful. No doubt she was doing this because she was so grateful for being... Exactly. Keep that point in your mind. I imagine that she could have tended to some other needs for herself, but in this moment, we're told she was quick to set aside her own needs and serve those around, Jesus' disciples. Servers are the last ones to sit down at the table in any gathering. And then everyone else who finishes their food wonders why, that person's not done by now. They just don't see it. They hear dishes in the background, but it doesn't register, right? For example, they're the last ones to enter a TV room when a family movie is taking place, because there's still some details to things to get just right for the environment. These are the ones who are the maybe last ones to the car because they're thinking of things that have to get done and for some reason nobody else helped them, but that's another story that we'll get to just shortly. Instead of relaxing or ignoring things, procrastinating or even tending to, instead of doing all that, they're tending to their own needs. Sometimes, I'll hold back the weaknesses, but we're praising the strengths right now. Be honest to yourself. How do you rank on this? Prioritizing the needs of others. As a general rule, it's not that you're not irresponsible. That's a category maybe in and of itself, but just be true to yourself. Okay. Point 3, servers enjoy manual projects, jobs, and functions. Now, enjoying getting something done is not the same thing. You enjoy the process. You don't even see it as an interruption or an intrusion. This is something you just can't wait to do. Peter's mother-in-law likely told others about the healing. But what was the first thing she did? I mean, so many people who were healed ran out and told everybody about the healing. And she began working on the manual task of serving. And the circumstances were conducive for that. And someone would say it just seems natural for her. Again, exactly. Servers are very hospitable. And it's very important. Observing some of these, by observation, I'll say servers do not always excel in the more verbal gifts. There are some exceptions and there are overlaps, obviously, but roles of personal or public communication don't always fit their comfort zone. They're not always in their element there. They are very comfortable, however, in the sphere of projects. I have an example as I'm thinking about South Haleyville experience, and some of them may be watching. This was long before marriage. You remember, well, actually not. It was about 10 years ago. Hard to believe it's been that long. 2011, you remember that Wednesday night where some very strong winds go in a circle, touch down, and you remember that night very well. But anyway, I didn't watch the TV. I didn't pay attention to the news. I was just there and wondering, why am I the only one in this church building tonight on a Wednesday night? Why am I the only one there? Oh, okay, there's a major catastrophe going on all around me. Got it. So the congregation there, I was looking, this bad storm, trees down, covered to the roads everywhere. And I think about the people who were just not comfortable, for the most part, they would do a great job. We would encourage all good effort. But not as comfortable reading scripture or making announcements, sharing devos, leading public prayer. Those people were the first ones. They were the first responders, unofficial first responders on the scene with their trucks and their chainsaws, clearing the road. And of course, I didn't have a truck or a chainsaw and not geared towards that at all. I think I was still taking many classes at the time, so that was my full focus. And now I'm thinking, I'm impressed. I'm impressed. I learned something there. So obviously, service tasks are a broad area and varied skills come into play. So don't say, well, I can't do this and this and this. But overall, what about you? Are manual projects, physical tasks, what you gravitate toward? Rate yourself honestly. Okay. Okay. Point 4, servers show love for others in action more than words. Before I arrived here, I think you went through the Love Languages book, and so you're probably thinking of things like, like sometimes the joke is, I need to hear it, not just show it. And some people say, well, you said it, but now I need to see it. That kind of thing. Well, that's relating to this, but it's good that, I talked to Terry just before. I said, do you mind if I share some details here? I'm a words guy. Terry is more of a I will do lady. So I'm thinking, in my mind, early in marriage, I had to condition my brain to see acts of service as being translated into the words that I needed to hear. And so that really helps in marriage that way. So as a student of Scripture, as we think about this point, we do have to ask, what was the primary intent for Scripture including this detail about her service? We can't ignore that likely it was to show how instant and powerful and complete her healing was. Because nothing was holding her back. She was incapacitated and now she's fully functional thanks to the power of Jesus. No lingering tiredness, nothing keeping her down. That probably is the primary point. But there are some other truths we can presume. I can't help but recognize that this was likely the natural way for her to instantly express gratitude. I just can't help but think that. Others tended to fall down and kiss Jesus' feet and repeatedly, verbally say, thank you, 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 thank you. Well, she showed her thankfulness by simply serving. That's how servers naturally are, without the other skill developed if it's not natural. They show their love and gratitude through actions, and servers find helpful things that they can do to show their appreciation. Now, in my life, I look and am honest that ministry itself has taught me certain service skills which have their own reward, but I am more wired to show those two virtues of love and gratitude by saying something. Saying something. That's how I'm wired and geared. And I learned through the past 15 plus years that some people don't care anything about words. You can preach a 24-hour sermon and it doesn't matter, but some people, they appreciate more for jumping up and taking out their trash or washing their car or mowing the grass. Who would have thought of that? Brilliant, right? Take notes. Thank God for servers who get things done and who show their love in action. How do you rank on this one? Okay, point number 5. Servers prefer doing the work rather than delegating it. Now, this is interesting. Ignoring all underdeveloped stains of the soul that are maybe attributed to sin, I want you to remember that Jesus is in Peter's house. This means that Peter's wife lives here. As the mother of Peter's wife, it would have not been inappropriate for her to start directing her daughter in tasks to serve these men. It would have been totally appropriate. No one would have thought the less of her. But her style in this moment was to do it herself. Now, I don't want you to confuse this with the complex that really anybody can develop, and that is, I'll do it myself so that it's done not just the right way, but obviously just my way. Anyone could develop that. But servers, it's just more like they see a job and they just say, I'll do it. That's a strength. Hold that thought for later. That's a strength. Let's see, I'm looking here. Servers see a need and they feel that tug. It's a tug where it would almost be a sin for them not to volunteer, jump in, help out, do it first. And that compels them to just get it done. While others can improve in punctuality, servers are having to improve in things like time management because there's so much that needs to get done right now. The differences are great, aren't they? Thank God for people who make things happen. If this is you, then you're needed. Bless you for the struggles that we'll soon talk about. You have a very important place. Rank yourself honestly on this. Whew. Okay. Strengths are great. Let's spend the second half of the class in our study talking about how we're blessed, yes, but the server is temporarily burdened. They have natural struggles and challenges to overcome. You've heard it said that for every strength there is a weakness. But I suggest to you that sometimes one's very strength can be his or her weakness. John chapter 12, verses 1 through 3, after Jesus raised Lazarus from the dead, he returned to the home of Mary and Martha. Martha has all the signs of being a natural server. I will not be as hard on her as others have been. While Lazarus was reclining at the table, Mary was demonstrating her gift of giving, obviously, by the ointment, very expensive ointment that she was pouring on Jesus' feet. It was Martha who was serving. However, in Luke chapter 10, we see that her servant's heart got the best of her in that it was a strength revealing a weakness, and it spiraled for a time. And well, while praising her gift of service, we do need to consider the nature of Jesus' reproof. Let's turn to Luke 10, verse 38. Now it happened as they went that he entered a certain village, and a certain woman named Martha welcomed him into her house, and she had a sister called Mary, who also sat at Jesus' feet and heard his word. But Martha was distracted with much serving. And she approached him, Jesus, and said, Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me to serve alone? Therefore tell her to help me. And Jesus answered and said to her, Martha, Martha, you are worried and troubled, shall I say justly, maybe burdened with many things, many important things. But one thing is needed. There's something you to focus on here. Mary has chosen that good part, that current moment's priority, which will not be taken away from her. Whew, that's deep. Okay. Notice how Martha demonstrates the 5 struggles that every servant contends with to a high degree. Number 1, servers can be overly critical of others who are not as attuned. Did I spell that right? Attuned to service. If you noticed, by the way, if you're the type of person that notices typos, just curious. That's another strength and weakness. We'll get to that in talent later. All right. From John chapter 12, verses 1 through 3, we see Mary exercising her gifted development of giving. Yes, given or developed gift. By the roles that she began performing at this time, one could assume that she was not as much of a natural server as Martha was. Let's just say that. Regardless, it doesn't matter. While Jesus was in her home, all that occupied Martha's thoughts were the serving tasks that were good to have done, and in her mind had to be done right now. Okay? If you're a server, you relate to her. When it became obvious that that Mary was not prioritizing the serving tasks like she was, Martha became extremely critical of Mary. She even asked Jesus in front of everyone to rebuke her sister and commend her to help in what she thought was most important. Okay, was this an isolated episode? If so, more focus on Martha probably needed to be. Did past experiences build to this bitter outburst? If so, there's some other factors to be considered. Who knows? But this is a moment where throughout our daily lives, we can look and maybe make connections. We should certainly learn more helping habits to show those servers we appreciate them. If you are married to a server, you well know its importance to keep showing steady support. They need to feel a good degree of that moral support. But servers, now brace yourself, can't always call the shots. There are usually bigger things happening than those tasks at hand, and it's hard for them to see that. Truth be told, unless mercy is also a gift or discipline, servers have a hard time practicing it as a command because servers struggle to understand how others just don't do. Look at how much needs to be done. I can't believe they're not helping. Maybe reminding them of all that I've done and still have to do will help them jump in. Nope, that didn't work. Okay, they're either blind and consider it lazy or all three because after all, the tasks are right there in front of them. That reasoning could apply in some circumstances. Yep, sure. But in our study, in this context, that reasoning is flawed because it's spoken through the filter of the server's own natural strengths. It's easy for me. I just don't see how it's not easy for you. I'll be carefully praiseworthy of a gentleman who years before marriage, I'm trying to remember how long it's been, but the congregation I was at, he came forward and wanted to restore his life, and preachers have a hard time believing that, but we encourage that. And this gentleman was sincere and still is doing a great job in all of his service. And I believe that if there were 24 hours in the day he could stay awake, he would spend serving other people, being with them in true selfless service. But he was so busy, he got so busy in selfless service that it didn't take long before he just couldn't help but think. And he asked me, we had to talk about this. And I said, I struggle with this too sometimes. I said, how can then you look at others and not be critical for who are doing so little? Okay. While other believers are happily living their life, maybe growing in their own strengths, possibly could do more, but that's another discussion. Maybe it's good that other people growing in their own way don't know that the intense servers are thinking of them as being lazy, procrastinators, undisciplined, irresponsible, and inconsiderate. Maybe that's good that they don't know that right now so that we can work on ourselves and Servers. Servers can travel some dangerous roads. I typed it this way. If not careful, tempered with God's wisdom and love, they might start seeing their own life habits as the standard of Christianity. That's dangerous. Those exceptionally gifted in serving invariably come to a crossroads where they have to evaluate and decide, how am I going to see these other people? How is it possible for others, frankly, to be saved if they aren't as busy serving God as they are or I am? And in this way, that's a deep, dark struggle that does exist and is very real in the part of some exceptional servers. So, not everyone, and we just have to admit this, and we all know it, but we have to hear it. Not everyone is wired to see those service needs as easily as the server does. If you see those needs easily, you're gifted. Unless there are deeper issues, servers just need to take a deep breath, read the scriptures, see things through God's eyes, and accept that it was God's grace that redeemed all of us to pursue righteousness in different fields of work and giftedness. Servers must learn to practice mercy and cut others the same slack that Christ dealt with us. But we all have levels of commands to adhere to, and the commands to help encourage one another, keep everything in balance. So, point 2. Servers may become pushy in their eagerness to help. Isn't it shocking how Martha spoke to Jesus in front of everyone, telling him how to do his job? One may wonder, what got into her? Just who does she think she is? What was she thinking? Possibly she was thinking, well, if Jesus really cared about me and the work that I'm doing, he would rebuke Mary and command her to help serve as well, because this is important. And it is important. Now, with some other gifts that we haven't yet discussed, I'm bringing some things into this, and I truly feel like Martha was only trying to help. I really do. I believe she was only trying to help. I don't think she was intending to be disrespectful to Jesus. She just couldn't understand why no one was seeing this as an issue, and she began to be pushy and interfering. Servers have a heart to help, but when others around just don't esteem that work, the server can become aggressive or obnoxious, and it's difficult not to be. So, being so focused on the task and their methods of accomplishment, the servers, can be viewed by others as controlling, manipulative, and if they are, that's another problem. But in their eagerness to help, they may not see how they're forcing or trying to impose their ways when it's not necessary. Or repeat instructions that they can't do themselves, and so they're wanting to control an experience through other people. This is tough if there's not a clear standard, obviously. So those are the people that everyone else, just as eager or hopeful, that leave the room pretty soon. Be honest with yourself. This is one where actually other people might be able to answer better for you, but be honest with yourself. How you rank. Number 3, servers may lose sight of these spiritual goals in the action of physical service. Martha's problem was not that she was a server, and who knows, but in the past, Jesus may have had to rebuke or instruct her to be a better server. Who knows? But each time, or I should say each of us, has a responsibility in this service, but at this moment, Martha just couldn't see that there was something more important happening. Something that would be wise for her. To stop everything, and that's a hard thing to do for us, but stop everything and participate in this. Now, it could have been her conduct and demeanor in this moment. It could have maybe passed unnoticed, but there is a time and a way to serve, but neither of these were those moments and times. It was time to listen to the master teacher. Martha's service gift, she was so attuned to those physical needs, manual projects, that she was distracted from the spiritual goal of growing at Jesus' feet in this moment. Servers can be so involved in things that they forget to take the time to pray. That family devotional time. Oh, I could be doing so many other things right now. I'm already 15 minutes behind. Okay, I know this point already. I know the Beatitudes. Let's get on with it. Whoa, slow down. Those spiritual disciplines may not be urgent, but they're most important. It's hard to balance the urgent and the important. Anyway, how do you rank yourself on that? Number 4, servers can get easily caught up in resentment. Martha was angry at Mary. Martha became resentful because she was focused on important tasks and she was all alone in that at the moment. That lit wick led to an explosion. Servers can get caught up in the fireworks of altercations or steady flame that just seethes under the surface. In such times, the servers can get very good at passive-aggressive snipping. That's not good, and it's tough to overcome that. All right, number 5, servers can easily be hurt when feeling under or unappreciated. Now, we all struggle in this, but some more intently. I view this account through my own experiences in life. That's why I'm usually nicer to Martha than some other people. I feel like there is much resentment here, and that means Martha's hurting. Now, there's another gift that we're not talking about yet, but if you look at this text and see Martha's hurt, and you probably have that other gift too. How long did she go without feeling noticed for her contribution? Was there an imbalance of praise to Mary that only naturally gifted servers like Martha would take note of? We got to be attuned to our needs. Servers rarely resent having done the work. It's not that they don't want to do the work or wish that they hadn't done it. That's what they love to do. Sometimes they're even happy to do it all on their own. They truly want to be not in the spotlight sometimes. That's just not them. Sometimes it is, but it's not really, that's not the nature of a server. But they do want their service noted. These truths do coexist. How do you not want to be in the spotlight and still be noted? Those truths coexist. And we are commanded to encourage the workers for good reason. When that doesn't happen, the very people you need are wounded, hurt, and their ability to continue producing, serving is compromised. That's just good insight, but let's go back to the point. Are you? How do you rank on this? How easily prone are you to intensely feel hurt and underappreciated after a week, a month, a year, forever? Okay, you love the work. That's not the point. Servers have a huge heart. It's the ability to show mercy that's too often tested. I have an important statement here I copied from another. If these struggles sound all too familiar, this might be your place in the congregation. But don't be upset with yourself. These weaknesses, they demonstrate areas for you to work on. That was a good quote. So add up these totals. Add them up. Divide by 10. And put your average score on the top. We will try to do this with every focused gift lesson. And then we'll stack them in the order of giftedness. We'll let you do that. And I think you'll find it very insightful. I think if you're like a number 3 on this, then you may never be a 10. That's okay. But if we can all improve a number or 2, we're on the right track. Some opportunities. Servers don't crave the limelight, but they will hear the Lord single them out and say, well done. That's going to be so great. Our member service sheet here at Oak Hill lists a lot more than worship roles. If you want to know what to do, I'll say it this way, and I typed it for humorous purposes. If you let Steve Murdoch know you want to be called whenever there is a need, you will be with him all day. Just want to let you know that, okay? You will see several opportunities to serve and discover more ways that you may think, you know what, that's what I've been looking for. For non-servers, how can we improve our serve? Like I said, ministry has taught me some things. Natural or necessity, I don't know. See, one unique concept of my brain is that I take my other preferred focused gift and overlap it with this one. So it's like I see my teaching as my service. That complicates things, but it explains a lot. So you'll see several opportunities. Here's what we can do to improve ourselves. Don't be too hard on yourself if it's not as vibrant as Peter's mother-in-law. But maybe, just maybe, if we work on these 5 points, we can see it more as a privilege. Point 1, become friends with a server. I mean, just an obvious server. Become friends with them. See how they're prompt, punctual, and all these things that we mentioned under their strengths. Watch what they do. Shadow them. And I really mean shadow them. Some servers have a hard time not seeing that as a burden, delay, hindrance. Okay, walk slowly through the crowd. Focus on the people. Observe others around you. Look and listen for chances to do something. If you're thinking of a task in the office, now I was just tonight thinking of a task that required me just to walk there and turn around, come back. To walk there and come back, there were 3.5, but really 4 things that came my way along the way. I couldn't just walk past and ignore. No way. But some people do. Point 2, or point next. Act now, don't procrastinate. Non-servers typically intend to help. I don't want to say I'm bad or anything, but I intend to help. I just tend to wait until the need's no longer there. Don't wait. Otherwise, the natural server will tend to it and then give you the stare. All right, number 4. Read to get ideas. Study Scripture, see how they served. Local publications can inspire you for ideas in your community. Number 5, say thank you. Non-servers may never, well, by experience, have a clue how important this is. But as we learn to value their work, we will more naturally be involved in it ourselves and improving all relations. Romans 12, 3-8. We all have our different functions. So if you scored low on these, that's okay. We have room to grow. If you scored high on these, bless you. We need you. And we all need to just pursue our gifts and grow in all of them. Okay. I like Ephesians 4, 15, 16. The body is supported by what every joint supplies. Every joint. So I said at the beginning of class, thank God for those with this gift. Absolutely. But I also want to say, thank those who are using it. That's very important.